Leaping Jack. The character who terrorized London. Leaping Jack is one of the most famous folkloric figures of Victorian London. His alleged sightings date back to 1837, with reports of terrifying close encounters with an evil demon dressed in a tarpaulin and a long black scarf surrounded by a terrifying aura, belching fireballs at his victims, wielding iron claws and strange metal armor, and possessing an uncanny ability to leap over the high walls of London, earning him the nickname Leaping Jack, with his amazing ability to crawl with ease. Leaping Jack roamed the streets of London, leaping and preying on pedestrians who crossed them alone. During the 2 decades between 1870 and 1890, Jack began to take on a more demonic appearance and persona, with more sightings claiming to have seen him with wings instead of a scarf and with little clothing. Witnesses say he was wearing a mask in the shape of a villain or a devil, or that his face was actually that. But one thing that remained unchanged throughout the years was his shiny black shoes. The first incident. While Mary Stevens, a maid, was on her way to her workplace in Lavender Hill in October 1837 from visiting her parents, she was attacked by a figure covered in a long black scarf, who suddenly leapt at her from nowhere and seized her with his hands to stop her from moving, and tore her clothes and kissed her on the face, causing Mary to scream in terror, causing him to flee the scene of the crime without a trace. The next day, this strange jumper chose a very different victim near Mary Stevens' home, initiating a new method that would reappear again and again in later reports. He jumped into the path of a passing carriage, causing the coachman to lose control of the carriage, causing it to crash, and seriously injuring the coachman himself. Several witnesses claimed that he fled the scene by jumping over a 9-foot, 2.7 m, wall, laughing in a high-pitched, delirious manner. News of this strange character spread and the newspapers gave him the nickname Leaping Jack. A year after Jack's first appearance on January 9, 1838, Sir John Cowan, the Lord Mayor of London, stood before the public at the Mansion House to read an anonymous letter sent to him about the demon known as Leaping Jack, which he had kept in his office for some time, trying to obtain more information before making it public. The letter was signed a Peckham resident, and the Lord Mayor read to the curious onlookers the following text: "It appears that certain individuals, whose writer is of a noble class, have made a wager with one of their companions, a mischievous and reckless fellow, by virtue of which they have challenged the daring and determination of that fellow to undertake a mission, whereby he will visit some villages near London in 3 different disguises, a ghost, a bear, and a devil, and, moreover, to enter the garden of a respectable man for the purpose of alarming the inhabitants of the house." Despite the difficulty of the task, the wager was accepted, and the wicked fellow succeeded in causing 7 ladies to lose their senses, 2 of whom are unlikely to recover from it. And they will become a burden on their families. At one of the houses, that evil man stood and rang the bell, so the maid came to open the door, to find that man who is worse than monsters standing in front of her in a form no less terrifying than ghosts, and he had put on his robe perfectly, and of course the result was that the poor girl immediately fainted, and from that moment she never came to her senses. This affair has been going on for some time, and it is strange to say that the newspapers have kept quiet about it. The writer of the letter has good reason to believe that they have a full history of the subject, but for reasons of their own interest they are silent. When the Lord Mayor had finished reading the letter he seemed somewhat skeptical about its contents, but a member of the audience assured him that some of the maids in Kensington, Hammersmith, and Ealing had told people horrific stories about this ghost or demon. The matter was dealt with in the Times on January 9, and in other national papers on January 10, and in the days that followed the Lord Mayor showed people piles of letters that had reached him from all over London, complaining of more of these wicked and vicious jokes. The quantity of letters sent to the Manor House suggests that stories of Leaping Jack were widespread in the suburbs of London in particular. One writer said that several young women in Hammersmith had suffered serious fits of terror and some had been seriously injured by some kind of the claws which this wicked man had in his hands, and another correspondent claimed that in Stockwell, Brixton, Camberwell, and Vauxhall several persons had died of fear. Meanwhile, other reports mentioned the impostor's repeated appearances in Lewisham and Blackheath. The mayor was puzzled by the affair, for on the one hand he thought it was being exaggerated and given more than it deserved, for it was impossible that there should be a ghost performing the devil's deeds and feats on earth, but on the other hand, a person whom he trusted had told him of the appearance of this ghost before a maid in Forest Hill, dressed in a bear's skin, and terrifying her to death. The mayor was confident that the person who performed these evil pantomime plays would be caught and punished. The police were instructed to search for and arrest the person responsible for all this, and large rewards were offered for anyone who helped in his arrest. Other mysterious incidents. The incident that Jane Alsop was exposed to is considered one of the most famous and widely spread incidents, as its details were published in some of the most widely read and widely circulated newspapers at that time. Jane recounted what happened to her as follows: on the night of February 19 I was at my father's house when I heard a knock at the door. When I asked who it was, I heard a man's voice saying he was a policeman and asking me to bring him a lamp, claiming that they had caught Jack the Leaper in the alley. When I opened the door I saw a person wearing a long coat standing in front of the door. When I handed him the candle, the man suddenly threw off his coat, revealing a very hideous and terrifying appearance. I saw him vomiting blue and white flames from his mouth, and his eyes were like two red balls of flame. He was wearing a huge helmet, and his coat seemed to be too tight for his size, and was made of tarpaulin. Without saying a word he grabbed me and tore my clothes off, but I screamed for help and managed to escape his grip and then ran into the house, but he caught up with me and caught me on the stairs and made bloody scratches on my neck and arms. 8 days after the bloody attack, on February 28, 1838, Lucy Scale, 18, and her sister were returning from visiting their brother, the butcher who lived in Limehouse. While they were passing through an alley, they noticed a person wearing a long black cloak standing at a corner of the road. At that moment, Lucy was in front of her sister, and when she passed by that person, he threw white flames in her face, which blinded her, and she fell to the ground in a panic attack that lasted for hours. Lucy's brother said that a few minutes after they left him, he heard one of them screaming, so he ran quickly towards the alley to find Lucy on the ground and his other sister trying to calm her down, so he carried his sister to the house, and the other sister told him that the attacker was tall and thin and appeared to be a noble man, and was completely covered with a large cloak, and was carrying a small lamp, and she added that he did not speak or try to touch them, but threw the flame in her sister's face and then quickly left. Many people were investigated, but all the efforts made by the police to uncover this person or creature did not lead to any results. The Brighton Gazette reported on April 14, 1838 that a gardener had been struck by a strange creature, the nature of which he did not know. The report said that Leaping Jack had apparently found his way to the Sussex coast. On April 13, Leaping Jack appeared before a gardener in the form of a bear or some other four-legged animal. The report bears some indications that the one who attacked the gardener was Leaping Jack. The gardener heard a growling sound like a bear, which drew his attention to find a creature he did not know. It then climbed the garden wall and ran on all fours along the wall, before jumping down into the garden and chasing the gardener for some time. After terrifying the gardener, it climbed the wall and jumped to the other side. In August 1877, at a military barracks in northeast England, a strange-looking figure suddenly blocked the path of a patrolling guard, rushed towards him, and slapped him several times in the face with his cold-clawed hands. The guard shot at him, but to no avail. Then the strange-looking creature mysteriously disappeared in amazing leaps. After this incident, the army authorities set traps all over the area in order to catch him, but they were unable to do so. The last time Leaping Jack was definitely seen was in Liverpool in September 1904, where he was jumping from the street to the roofs of houses and then jumping back to the street. When some brave citizens tried to surround him and capture him, he simply jumped away from them into the depths of darkness. Explanations. Just as there were many exaggerations in depicting Leaping Jack as a supernatural creature that terrified people, there were many skeptics about the existence of the Leaping Jack character, and there were also many guesses and beliefs that behind the Leaping Jack character there are people with an exaggerated sense of humor, who do not hesitate to do anything for the sake of humor and laughter. Henry Pearse, Marquis of Waterford, was one of the people many thought to be Leaping Jack, and this is consistent with the content of the letter sent to the Mayor of London, in which the writer believed that the person behind the Leaping Jack character was an aristocrat, so the authorities did not make any effort to arrest him or try to track down those behind these terrifying incidents. Rumors were growing and circulating about the Irish nobleman, the Marquis of Waterford, because of his known love of women and his many confrontations with the police. His name had been frequently repeated in the news since 1930 due to his drunken brawls, and because he was known for his violent jokes and his acts of vandalism, and he was ready to do anything to win one of the bets placed on him by his friends. This reckless behavior earned him the nickname of the Mad Marquis, and he was in London when the first incident occurred. In 1880, the writer Cobham Brewer asserted that the Marquis was behind the character of Leaping Jack, saying, "He was in the habit of appearing to leap before travellers by surprise, to amuse himself, and to frighten them, and from time to time others followed his example in his ridiculous practices." Another person suspected was Thomas Milbank, who, after the incident with Jane Alsop, boasted that he was the Leaping Jack who had attacked her. He was arrested and tried, but was acquitted because Jane Alsop insisted that her attacker had breathed flames, which Milbank insisted he could not have done, and so he was released. There have been a variety of explanations that have attributed this character to the supernatural, including those that he was an extraterrestrial entity with non-human appearance and features, red reflective eyes, fire breath, and his superhuman speed derived from life in a more dangerous world, along with his strange ability to leap and his abnormal behavior. Some interpretations see him as a demon, intentionally or unintentionally summoned into this world by practitioners of magic and astrology.